Hello and welcome to Ditch the Diets, an online summit for helping women 40 and over break free from diet hell so they can finally lose weight for good without all the mind drama. I'm your host, Danielle Emmons, registered dietitian nutritionist, and it is my pleasure to welcome Jessica Kishpaw. Did I say that right?
You did.
Oh, awesome. Okay, welcome, Jessica. I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you so much for doing this interview.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Of course. Jessica is a holistic nutritionist and emotional eating coach. With an intuitive eating and self-care approach, Jessica counsels clients to let go of dieting behaviors and overcome emotional eating so they can create happier, wholesome, balanced lives and to empower them with confidence to live a life of health, body positivity, and freedom. Again, thank you, Jessica, for being here. So let's just dive in. I would love to start off with just having you share a little bit about your story and your journey of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I will try to keep it as brief as possible because it's a very long one. But from a personal and physical standpoint, I was someone who struggled for probably two decades or so, way back to middle school years, with weight and body image, very self-conscious and embarrassed about my own body and, my own weight, that just continued through high school and through college, and then put more weight on in college and after college. I ended up at law school and practiced law for about 10 years, and then had just a major revelation on a lot of fronts. Struggling with body image and weight was part of the problem for me, but really it was the deeper seated emotional connection to food that I didn't realize was really the problem and the root cause of what was happening. It was the dieting behaviors. It was the jumping from this thing to that thing. It was the constant obsessing about the scale. It was the eating because I was emotional or stressed or anxious, especially, gosh, in law school, right?
Yeah.
It was obsessing about food obsession. It was just disorder thinking around, body image and food. And, there was so much there that I needed to unpack and uncover, but I didn't realize that. When I did, I was able to work with some different practitioners, both in nutrition and in the mindset space. And I use that term very generally because there's that means a lot of different things, but, working with various coaches and practitioners to kind of help me reevaluate my own priorities and reevaluate why I'm getting in my own way and how to let go of emotions that didn't serve me, for example, and ultimately how to recover and heal my relationship with food. Now, kind of through all that, I discovered that I had a passion for nutrition and a passion I've always had a passion for helping others. And I really wasn't finding that in the law. I was quite burnt out and was not happy in the space that I was in. It took me 3 years to go to law school after college in the first place. So that's probably why, because I never really wanted to do that. It was almost a fallback career. And so I realized that wasn't what I was supposed to do. So I went back to school and got numerous certifications and developed a real passion for food behavior and food psychology, and meaning the mindset and behaviors that we have around food, relationship with food, emotional eating, these dieting behaviors that that so many women go through. And left law and had an enormous transformation physically, right? So I was able to finally lose the weight, keep it off. I went on and had 3 very healthy pregnancies. I, ran a marathon. I was able to accomplish a lot of physical goals that I had for myself, but also completely shifted my own career in terms of helping women get out of their own space, get out of their own way, tackle a lot of these challenging emotional connections to food and their mindset around food so that they could achieve their sustainable, whether it be weight loss or health or whatever that optimal place that they want to be.
Mm-hmm. That's a great story. In law school, I mean, that's a fallback career, but so that's a great. But I think that's great. I don't think, sometimes I think that things don't happen by coincidence. Like you're led, down a path for a purpose. Um, and I'm sure, you're helping so many people. Do you feel that people come to work with you more for like weight loss, or do you think, and then they learn that they, what they really need is to kind of change their mindset, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I would say the number one challenge or frustration for most of the women that I work with is extra unwanted weight. But they
Mhm.
come to work with me because the diets don't work for them and they're not sustainable. And so they know that there's something deeper rooted going on, and they want to get to the root cause of what's happening in their minds and their behaviors, in their self-talk, in their self-care, in their time management, in their stress, in their emotional eating behaviors, even just hormonally, like how to rebalance things hormonally so that they can see progress that is actually sustainable.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think it's probably more so than even nutrition, because a lot of people know what to eat, but it's the mind, it's the mind, the emotional eating, the the all the things women go through, the guilt, the feeling bad about ourselves, and not knowing how to shift that. Um,
I hear this all the time. And I spoke to somebody this morning, and she told me all the different things that she was on, and she lost all this weight each time,
yeah,
right? 60 pounds on this thing, 60 pounds on this, 50 pounds on this, 40 pounds on this. And each time she could follow the rules, which is actually quite impressive, because I would say most people can't follow the rules for that long of a time, because they're so strict and their cravings go through the roof and they end up caving anyway, or emotions come into play and that interjects the issue, and they end up cheating and then kind of spiraling. This
yeah,
particular woman actually was able to stay steady in these strict places, but then at some point something happens, and there's life and there's lifestyle, and at some point it's like, okay, I just want to eat the thing that I haven't eaten in so long. And then one thing leads to the next. And all of a sudden they spiral and snowball out of control, and they don't know how to not be so black or white. It's like
right.
either you're perfect or you're failing, but the success lies in the middle ground. So, even with this woman that I was talking to, it's like, yes, I lost this weight and then I gained it right back. And I lost this weight and I gained it right back. So her biggest issue was not knowing necessarily like how to eat healthier. It was how to eat in a way that's satiable and substantive for weight loss, but also to fit into her lifestyle so that she can be consistent and feel that she could do this forever.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because
I
if
get
you
that.
feel like you are doing something, if you feel like you are on a diet and you feel like you can't do that forever, then it's not going to work. It's not going
Right.
to work for the long run. You'll be back
Yeah.
where you at because you haven't changed the habits.
Right. I totally agree. I always say if you can't do it forever, why don't even start, because you're just going to gain it back. It's not sustainable. It's not realistic. And I mean, I've seen that before, where it's amazing that people can lose like even 100 pounds and gain it all back, and then lose another 100 pounds. I know someone who did this 4 times, and it's wow, that has to take a lot of willpower, which is like white knuckling it. Most people can't even do that, but that's not the way to do it, right? That's
If
obviously not going to last.
and not just willpower. I mean, that's destructive on your body.
Oh,
That is
sure. Yeah.
creating a major hormonal upset in your body. And it's really creating a lot of disservice to your mental health. That's a
Yeah.
lot of failure. That's a lot of white knuckling and fighting with yourself, and doing this from a place of fighting and punishment for so long to lose that much weight and then letting it all drop. That's like, those are two enormous sweeping types of emotions that create more stress in your body, which has its own repercussions. But that emotional roller coaster isn't healthy for you either.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. So I know you talk about self-care being non-negotiable. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So self-care has always been sort of the crux of what I've foundationally what I've anchored myself to from the very beginning during my own transformation. And when I created my business, I remember going on a trip to Florida with my husband, and we were sitting, getting a drink and waiting for our dinner. And we were writing on cocktail napkins, like, what should I name my company?
Hmm.
And we were throwing around these terms and whatever. And I was like, well, I want it to be more than my name, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, he threw out this word. He's like, well, what about YOLO? But like, that's too kind of like teeny boppery. And he's like, what about LO-YO? Like, love yourself. Because I always talk about this concept of like, everything starts from how you treat yourself, right? Like loving yourself in mind, loving yourself in body, loving yourself in your soul. Like it's a mind, body, soul experience. And when you can incorporate self-care as a non-negotiable, meaning you put yourself first, you put your health first, you put your mental health first, your physical health first, your mindset, everything is self-care, right? So, if just taking the opportunity to say, like, listening to whoever is listening to these interviews, like that's self-care, because you're learning, you're growing, you're wanting to, better yourself.
Right.
So that's where that sort of stemmed from. And now it's become just a word that we use, in the business, in the program that I run, because it's so important. That's a huge piece of this. How do you talk to yourself? How do you talk about yourself? What do you do for yourself? Are you constantly putting everyone else first? And is your health failing because of that? How do you, put your health first while also putting other people first, right? It doesn't have to be one or the other. You don't have to it's not it's like you're not putting your kids or your spouse or someone, just serving them by putting your own health and well-being and mindset first. It's both. It's a little bit of both. It's learning how to create boundaries and learning how to, empower your own self so that you can live into those things that are important to you.
Right. And as women or mothers or whatever, we often don't do that. And it's something I had to learn in a very difficult, like the hard way. Everybody kind of, I think some people go to food, some people just go shopping, some people, go to alcohol. And for me, it was just anxiety. And I remember being told that you need to do things for yourself. You need to find joy in life. And my thought was, well, first of all, I don't have time for that. Second of all, I do have joy in life. Like I'm happy when my kids are happy. I'm happy when my husband's was happy, when my husband's happy or friends are happy. Like I didn't want to make decisions because I just wanted everyone else to be happy. And I thought that was enough. But what I didn't realize is that I was just wearing myself out, and not putting myself first was not working. To me just kind of breaking down and mentally and physically. And so I always tell people, don't be me. But it is hard. How do you work with women to change that? And that might be just like a really big question, because everyone's a little different, I'm sure.
I think it really, it's a great question. And a lot of the work I do from the mindset perspective is actually getting really clear on our values. And it kind of stems from there. That's a great anchor too. Like, what actually matters to you? What is really important to you? Why does that matter to you? What are your core priorities? What are your core values? Mm-hmm. And we can think of them more vaguely. Like if someone were to ask you without really giving it much thought, I'm sure you could rattle off a few things that are important to you, and it'll probably be my health, my kids, my family, right? And it's like the generic things, but go a bit deeper. What is really something that you value? People wise, or personality trait wise, or core themes in your life wise? Is it financial? Is it creativity? Is it integrity and honesty? Is it what matters? Mm-hmm. What lights you up? What drives you? What is something that you want to live and breathe each and every day of your life? If you can get clear on that, then that creation of self-care for yourself will fit super nicely and easily and seamlessly into your life, because you're able to be intentional about what matters to you. And if you're living into what matters to you and you're doing things that matter to you, that's joy, that's happiness, that's ultimately like where you want to be. You're vibing at a great level energetically, so to speak.
Right. That makes so much sense. That is very insightful. I like that. Yeah. And I'm just going to go back to what you talked about with boundaries, because I know for myself, I'm 46, and I don't think I knew I knew how to set boundaries like until 2 years ago. I was like, oh, I can set boundaries. I was always just like, yes, 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 people pleaser, whatever everybody else wants. And then there's nothing left, for you.
Yeah. It's freeing. And people, I think those who struggle with feeling guilty when it comes to implementing self-care are the ones who feel most restricted or bound, like handcuffed to whatever their ultimate challenge is, whether it's weight or anxiety or whatever that challenge is. They feel very stuck. And when you can create boundaries for yourself, it does become very freeing.
Mhm.
And it becomes very freeing in a very guilt-free way. And I think that's the biggest fear that many people worry when they create boundaries. No one's going to like me anymore, or I'm going to feel really bad if I don't do X, Y, and Z. But learning those types of tools to be able to say, no, I need to say no.
Mhm.
Or this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to empower myself to do it because I know that I deserve it and I'm worth it. And that also helps empower your own self-worth.
Yeah.
Often people who don't create boundaries have negative self-worth.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then that feeds into other issues. Negative self-worth creates feelings around food, creating emotional eat. So they're all, and then creates patterns of eating all the time from emotional eating, and then gaining the weight. And now we have more negative self-worth because now we're overweight, and now we feel bad about the way we look and feel because we've let ourselves get this far. And it snowballs. It really does. So again, self-care,
Right.
like it all always stems back to self-care and the core things that are important to you, and creating those tools for yourself to implement. You fix that, it has a nice positive ripple effect instead of a negative ripple effect.
Mhm. Yeah. I love that kind of analogy and the idea of just unpacking those things so that you can, um, I don't know. I always learn by insight. And so,
Yeah.
and I'm getting lots of insight, but, it makes so much sense. And someone said to me one time, I'm just using myself as an example because that's, what maybe
I
something,
do it all the time.
yeah, someone can relate. But I remember someone saying to me one time, because my daughter, she's 12 now, but she said, if you don't change, like basically, like I remember her asking, like, well, what if her friend was like really exhausted and burnout? And, what would you tell them to do? And I said, maybe they should get a massage or just like relax, like, and watch a good feel good movie or whatever, take a bath. And she's like, well, what about you? And I'm like, no, 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 I don't have time for that. I can't do that. And I always thought I have to be productive, and I can't, otherwise I'm lazy if I sit around and do nothing, watch a movie, whatever. I would just fall asleep anyway because I was exhausted. But then she said, if you don't change, your daughter's going to follow in your footsteps. And that was like, no, I don't want her to be that way. And so that was very insightful for me to realize I don't want her to be that way. So why would I want myself to, why is it okay for me to feel this way? I need to change me. I can always see the good. I could always see the good in everybody else and what they
And
needed, but not myself.
and it's so interesting because then you see the correlation between the selfless act of self-care affecting her.
Mhm.
It becomes it's still, you're doing it for her, like not you're doing it for her, but like because
That's
you're
right.
able to do that, it's still helping somebody else. And I think that's something that people have to realize, is that if we can finally work on us, look at the benefits. It's not just benefiting you. So that's how you help to let go of the guilt, because the benefits will become, multifold,
Mhm.
and will again ripple effect to all these other people. Maybe it's
Yeah.
people in your business or in your work life. Maybe it's your kids, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's all these things, because if you can change for the bettering yourself, then that helps change the relationships. And in your case, helping set a really good role modeling behavior for your daughter.
Yeah.
But if we continue to tell the stories in ourselves, in our head, which is just a story, right? I don't have time. I don't have time. We all have time. We have 168 hours in a week.
Right.
How do we make time? How do
Right.
we make time?
Yeah. Because I mean, I think that and I've learned if you don't make time, you're going to have to rest anyway, because you're going to get sick, or you're going to have headaches, or, eventually you're going to be forced because you're so burnt out and exhausted, or your immune system is down. So, yeah.
That's the non-negotiable part. I can actually tell you this right now, is that like May has been a pretty stellar month in terms of like new clients and things coming into our program. And, we've just had a really wonderful, like we're almost at the end of the month. So I can say this, like we've had a really, really great month, and the most productive month with the least amount of time spent. And looking back, and I was talking through this with somebody this week and being like, what was that? And I said, I personally, now I don't know about the rest of my team, but I can say for me personally, I have spent less time in front of this computer and more time outside walking with my children, intentional time with my kids, not just like, oh, let me cook you dinner, like intentional time with each of my children, intentional time, like having fun with my kids, intentional time being alone. I meeting a friend for a coffee, meeting a friend for this, seeing my family, like doing things that bring me joy, and taking that time so that when I am working, it is super productive and it's great, but I feel so much less pressure. And so I'm able to also be super productive in less time.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the self-care. That's all the stuff that I've been doing for me, because that makes me feel good.
Yeah. And it has a ripple effect on everything else in your life.
Yeah.
And probably and your clients, and, and just, they probably feel that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're run down, everyone's going to feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. So, if you were to leave listeners with one single action today, what would that be?
That's a good question. One single action. I would say, what is one thing that you can do today for yourself that brings you joy, that's specific, that's intentional, that's something that you didn't do yesterday, and then go do it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it shouldn't be perfect, because then you'll hem and haw and procrastinate and you'll never do it. So what is one thing you can do and will do today? Again, that's in alignment with something that's really important to your own, core values, and then go do it. Take imperfect action and then go do it.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
And I know you have a free gift. You want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. So I have a ebook, so to speak. It's a short PDF or a multi-pager about cravings, both physical cravings and emotional cravings. And it gives little hacks in terms of, if you're having certain types of physical cravings, where's that coming from? If you're having emotional cravings, what does that actually mean? And what can you do in the interim while you're feeling the feelings? And some, little tips and hacks in terms of both types of cravings. When we think of cravings, we think of chocolate, but it's not just that. There is this physical hormonal standpoint, there is this emotional standpoint. And so it's a little bit of both of those things.
Great. Thank you. Thanks so much for that gift. And the link is beneath the video here, so you can grab that. And also, can you share where people can find you?
Yes, absolutely. So I think best places would be either loyowellness.com, LOYO wellness.com. You can find me on Instagram at Jessica Kishpa. You can find me on Facebook at Jessica Kishpa. And I think those are the good places.
Okay, perfect. And we have links to all those.
We'll keep it easy. We'll keep it to the easy places.
Perfect. Thank you. And I just also want to remind our viewers to continue to tune in for more upcoming interviews with other amazing experts like Jessica. And I'd also like to encourage you to join my free Facebook group, Weight Loss and Wellness for Life, where you'll see me doing different trainings on nutrition and health, and also be able to connect with others on a similar journey as you. So again, thank you, Jessica, and thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome.